The Midwest, home sweet home in good old Indiana. Place of small towns, cozy families gathered together, and fields of corn and rustic woods. But, like any town, there is a dark underbelly that often goes unnoted. We are part of that darkness. We lurk in the shadows to bring you the best in horror, metal, and stories of the grotesque. This is Blood in the Cornfields.
All right, welcome in, cellar dwellers. As always, I am Mark.
And I'm Ivy.
And we are Blood in the Cornfields. Excited for our episode today because we have someone from your neck of the woods, ma'am.
Yes, we do. So if you can't imagine already, you can kind of guess what the theme of the episode is.
Really? I'm seeing,
maybe
like what is the Mogwai?
Gizmo?
Yes. Why couldn't I say Gizmo? I don't know. And then I see Iron Maiden and Jason and some CDs. So what does that lead us to?
Well, we are going to be talking about Gremlins, but specifically an interesting way of talking about Gremlins. I don't think anybody else has really talked about this except for maybe you, Ben, and that brings us to our guest. Ben, please introduce yourself, and then we'll go into how we kind of know each other from there.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Ben Schmidt. Professionally, I am a mortuary science professor at 2 colleges where I teach anatomy, chemistry, and restorative art. For the people in the audience who don't know what that is the restoration of deceased humans, right? And generally when people think about that, they think about, a very highly traumatized skull or whatever, but restorative art is really all the presentation options, right? And I like to think of it as like even the way that someone looks in their casket and the way that they're dressed and the sort of vibe around them. Mm-hmm. And to that point, I wrote a textbook on restorative art, so I'm a textbook author, awesome. And I am also the community engagement coordinator at an embalming fluid company. And I am the host of 2 podcasts, the Funeral Science Podcast and the FuneralCast. And I'm at Ivy on the road in Indiana because one of the other things that I do is seminars that are continuing education for already licensed embalmers.
Mm-hmm. And it was such an awesome time meeting you because you went over something that I thought was a unique way of learning. And that was basically, for the audience, he just presented like different cases of restorative art, but like with movie characters. And I thought that was really cool. Like if my teachers would have done that, I would have been all over that. That would have helped me learn so much.
You would have paid attention more.
I always paid attention, but like,
I don't.
Yeah, it would have made me perk up more, and I probably would have remembered half of my restorative stuff, the way that I do stuff a little bit better had I have had you as a teacher.
Well, I'm sure whoever you did have was excellent. And now, so a little bit of background about that particular presentation. I was invited to give a seminar to the embalmers at Forest Lawn. For people who don't know what Forest Lawn is, that's in Los Angeles, and that is where a lot of famous people are buried. Michael Jackson, Elizabeth Taylor, Walt Disney, they're buried there. And they asked me like, hey, can you do a 4-hour technical seminar? And at the time I had like maybe an hour and a half worth of materials. Oh, wow. So I thought to myself, okay, I need to come up with some more stuff for this. And I thought, you know what? I'm going out to Hollywood. And so I'm going to do this presentation that I'd always kind of thought about, which was, yes, look at famous movie deaths and think about them through the lens of embalming. But there's a lot of famous movie deaths out there. But I really, whenever I come up with these, I want to think about the ones that are unique character deaths. So, like, for example, if it's like, somebody who dies of a gunshot wound in a movie, like as funeral directors, we deal with that kind of stuff a lot. So that's not really unique. But like, I talk about Yoda. I talk about, the guy who got the Gilbert Kane. You got the chest burster alien, and those sorts of things. And then try to relate it to something that's in reality. That way we can kind of navigate how we were going to do it. And it just so happened that, Ivy had kind of like been like, wow, that's really interesting that you did that. And we'd like to do a Christmas episode for our podcast. And would you be interested in doing Gremlins? Well, for that particular presentation, I had actually edited the Gremlin out. So I kind of come a little armed already with only case analysis of Gremlins. Yes.
Yeah, because I think it was also on because it was like near Halloween time too that we had like the seminar, and you were talking about different horror movie characters, and I saw the gremlin up there. I'm like, oh, he's gonna talk about a gremlin. And it didn't come, and I was like, no.
No, I think, you know what? I forgot to take that one. I was giving that presentation again recently, and I was like, well, I forgot to take that gremlin out of there on the title slide of that section. So it's a bummer. Sorry, I didn't mean to get you jazzed up, but hopefully we can make up for it now.
Yep, and that's perfect. I mean, you're talking to a full gremlin fan here, man. Like, I got the sweater.
I should have worn my hoodie.
Oh, you got a gremlin hoodie?
Yeah, remember I wore it once and we matched.
Oh.
That's right. I have like an ugly sweater pattern, but it's a hoodie and it's Gremlins.
That's right.
I didn't realize. I went with Demon Hunter instead, I guess. I
it's
don't know.
green.
Yeah, it's green. So there we go. I should have wore that.
Yeah, so this is going to be exciting. I love, because one of the things that we had talked about before, we were brainstorming ideas for like, what deaths could we analyze that are Christmas themed. One of the ones that came to my mind was like Silent Night, Deadly Night, because we just finished watching all those movies and doing a retrospective on it.
Yes, we did.
But that one just was a little too much. So Gremlins was like the safe space. I feel like Gremlins is like, because you do a lot of stuff that's, more family friendly. That's perfect. Honestly, Gremlins is a really good family-friendly movie.
Yeah.
It's
Maybe
a little dark, but
I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but it's one of the catalysts for the PG-13 rating.
that is true, along with Raiders. No, not Raiders. Was it Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Temple
Or
of
was
Doom.
it Temple of
Temple of
Doom?
Doom.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, because people, Mogwais are so cute and boy, those gremlins look fun. But then, extreme violence is, of course, one of the topics that we're going to cover from the movie Gremlins.
Right.
Extremely dark. So, all these people bringing their kids out to the theaters are like, oh, yeah, cute Mogwai. All of a sudden, Gizmo, he's so adorable. Like,
Yeah. Just wait.
Not everyone else's starting point is our starting point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and it's a child of the 80s, that's the kind of stuff that we watched.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
your your regular PGs meant something. It meant parental guidance.
Right, yeah. Here it's just like, it's just another cartoon that's from the Disney. You're right. It's like, no,
Right.
you really should have listened back then. In our parents.
The 80s is my absolute favorite decade for film. You name it. If you want a comedy, bring it on. Or bring it on. Like action, okay. The
Top
80s,
notch.
and the 80s I think is the best decade for film. I mean, partially I grew up 81. I was born, so I grew up a lot in the 80s. I totally love the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the golden age of film, right? Because people, and a lot of the stuff still holds up. Some of those movies from the 80s that are like, well, they managed to make them evergreen, even though it lacked the technology that we have now or whatever. And some of the humor, those of us from the 80s, we could still laugh at the stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see it like if it was a new movie, like probably no good, but some of the stuff is like, well, okay, it was the 80s.
And some of the comedy is so not PC, and I'm crass and I don't care, but I love it. I love how far from PC it is. It just makes me giggle that much more. I actually had a chance to win a nerd laugh off in front of the cast of Revenge of the Nerds.
Oh, that's interesting.
I lost. I choked. I went to do it and my voice gave out. And I looked like an idiot. But I did like a little quick stand-up joke because I figured, well, I'm on mic, so I might as well warm up the crowd because I knew nobody else was going to do that. Nobody else had the stones to take the mic and tell a joke. So I was like, I will. But yeah, it didn't do me any good. But yeah, I made Booger laugh.
So there you go.
Yep. So that was cool. And I got a bumper sticker for participation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to meet Booger, got a bumper sticker. There you go.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Well, without further ado, shall we get on to our first death?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, so we could really talk about a gremlin in general. I was looking at, obviously there's a lot of gremlins that die in this movie.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of them that get the axe.
Getting the
Yeah,
blender.
right. And it's hard to pick the one, because like one dies in a microwave or, of course, a bunch of them burn to death in the movie theater at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, everybody. Sorry about that. When I would talk about this, I would actually talk about the one from Gremlins 2, right? They had the brain gremlin who decided that he was going to, display their brutality and just shoot the other gremlin who was laughing at him on the talk show, right?
Was that civilized? I don't think so.
Right, very, very famously.
We want to be civilized. I mean, you take a look at this trail here. Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not.
So really what I would think about is the gremlins biology in general, because it's kind of a confusing situation, right? Because the gremlin is
it's a foreign thing. It's
I don't know. Maybe.
They're filled with green goop. I know that.
Well, we have fur on a gremlin, right? So that indicates that it is a mammal, hypothetically. But again, mammals don't typically reproduce when they get wet by just, I don't know, popping off little balls of fur. That's not necessarily a way that we can recognize a mammal. And then, of course, when you feed them after midnight, I mean, obviously, most mammals or animals in general don't have a specific time at which you're right. You have to wonder, these animals are from China. Are they like on Chinese time or
True. I never thought about that.
They asked that question in the second movie a lot. They're like, so if a gremlin eats something after midnight, where is it? Like what time frame?
Yeah, right. Or they just automatically adjusted to Central Time, which is where, Chicago is where the movie takes place. So, okay, I guess we're good. Maybe it's like a sleep habit similar to ours, right? We just adjust to a time zone and we're good to go. I mean, Gizmo in particular, he'd been around in Chicago for a while, living in the Chinese gift shop. So I guess he's probably on that schedule, right?
Yeah.
So, and then, of course, when you feed them after midnight, what do? They turn into some kind of a cocoon.
Yeah.
Essentially, right? And then they hatch. So these are some interesting life cycles for something that we might think is a mammal or not, right? So the biggest challenge for us is where are the arteries on these animals and how does it change, right? Because even predictably, we see the mogwais breathing oxygen, so we know they have some kind of vascular system. We see them eating the chicken like a bunch of maniacs, so we know that they have sort of a similar vascular system and energy absorption system to ours. So we know that we can embalm them, but part of it is that you need to be able to find their arteries. So regardless of what they have, we're pretty fortunate that, I guess, I don't know, did mogwais evolve? I don't know. But animals that evolved, we all have similar vascular systems, right? And so for those of you that know your anatomy a little bit but haven't really thought about it, but even like other mammals and things, you can locate carotid arteries. Ivy, you ever had to embalm an animal before?
I have not.
Yeah, so if you like look for it enough, you can find that even if they're fish, even if the mogwais fall under fish somehow, or reptiles, or whatever, something with a complex vascular system, we should be able to do that. And then our chemicals, for those people in the audience who don't know how embalming works, the way that it works is that we introduce formaldehyde into vascular system. And why we use that is that it balances or essentially the proteins from decomposing. And so all complex life from bacteria on up is made of protein. So we should be able to use our chemicals perfectly fine. But the challenge here is this is what I've really thought about, because like, what is one of the rules about gremlins?
Can't feed them after midnight, can't get them wet in sunlight.
Right. So the wet part, right? We use water in embalming.
Ooh.
So what happens when you apply water to a dead gremlin? I mean, at the end of the movie, we got kind of this weird situation, right? Because Stripe jumps into that fountain, but then he's exposed to sunlight and that completely fries him. So, we don't know, like in that situation, what's really happening, but
because he starts bubbling as if like he's gonna reproduce.
Right. And, all embalming fluids have some water in them, but is it the water that is it, or is it the liquid that's the problem? Because if that's the issue, I mean, we could still get around it, right? Because we can put embalming powders and stuff on top of them and should be able to manage it perfectly fine. Because, of course, if we got a hold of one of these gremlins, somebody would want to have it as a specimen. So
for study.
We would want to embalm it and be able to study it and all that other stuff.
Do you think it would be one of those situations where, and, again, this is for learning and also because you and I are both morticians, we've done it before. Would it be one of those situations where, like, okay, for example, like with an infant that passes away, sometimes it's a little too difficult to find, the carotid or even any other arteries just because they're so small, they're so tiny. Would it be one of these things where like you would either submerge the gremlin in like let's say like a really well doused vat of like embalming chemicals, or if you would even like use like the gel. So for example, like, the what's that pink gel called?
Hexaphene?
Yes. Like if we were to use that, set them over, for 24 hours, would that allow them to, I don't know, maybe be able to embalm? It won't embalm them internally, unless of course you were to like autopsy them somehow.
Well, I don't know how tough their skin is.
Right.
So those gels might be ineffective, so to speak, because it'd be like just putting it on a turtle shell, depending on how scaly they are. So, maybe a hypodermic injection would work if we had a struggle with the vascular system. That may also be an option. But again, it depends. It's like we almost need 2 gremlins, which seems like there'd be no problem because, again,
you're trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, just we'll bring in all the gremlins. You do whatever it is, right? So the first one, we'll see if we can use regular liquids on it. If it doesn't explode or reproduce somehow, then we're good to go. And then if it is a problem, then we'll move on to powders or whatever else we can use, I guess.
And here's an interesting question. Like, do you think it'd be easier, again, we don't know what the skin is like or anything like that, if he's going to break our scalpel just by us trying to, do our thing. But like, would it almost feel easier to embalm a mogwai that has like fur and all that versus like this, like lizard looking being,
The mogwai is smaller than the gremlin.
Right.
So it would be a little bit more, compact, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mogwai, seems to be more identifiable in species also, because you think, oh, okay, this looks like a mammal. It's got fur. It's obviously not placental, but hey, you know what? We got things like platypus and stuff that are mammals. So who knows where, all sorts of weird animals come from that region of the world anyway. So surprise, surprise, we have one that immediately shoots off little fur balls. I don't know. But yeah, that one seems definitely more accessible and more manageable than the full-blown gremlin.
Yeah. And that, like, because we were talking about like hypodermically, like injecting them, like they can be injected, like the smart brainy gremlin does that in the second movie. So it's possible.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. So, yes, they're susceptible to regular medical treatment, which, in a way is what embalming is. And so, it could totally possibly work that way. Yeah.
So then to the second death that we have, and we'll have Luke play the clip for us.
Perfect.
The fireman came and broke through the chimney top. And me and Mom were expecting them to pull out a dead cat or a bird. And instead, they pulled out my father. He was dressed in a Santa Claus suit. He'd been climbing down the chimney on Christmas Eve, his arms loaded with presents. He was going to surprise us. He slipped and broke his neck, died instantly. And that's how I found out there was no Santa Claus.
Yes, the clip. Oh, wow, what a terrible dark death that was.
Yeah, right?
Which it definitely was. I mean, when you think about it, when I was a kid, when I saw that movie, because when the movie came out, like 1983, right?
83, 84, something like that.
So I was probably 6 or 7 when I watched it the first time. I thought, that's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of questions that I had too. I watched the clip of that, her talking about it earlier today in preparation for this. And I have to wonder how big this chimney was.
Yeah, right? For him to get stuck?
And she also describes an armful of presents.
Yeah.
And it must have been pretty good size for him to even be like, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
I'll go down there.
I can make it.
He dies by slipping and falling.
Because he breaks his neck, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's what it says. So you slip and fall down the chimney. I don't know. That seems like it seems like it's a pretty big chimney.
Right.
That's what it was. What, chimneys in the 80s.
Yeah, right. It was a different time.
Maybe they were wider.
Yeah, right. Or maybe they lived in a mansion.
You never know.
I mean, and this guy obviously had like a desire to do this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh, that's driving me crazy. Like, do I need to sit closer? Is it the lighting that keeps setting it off? I don't know. I have the instructions right here, and I complain about it and never do anything. Okay, so back to the discussion here. So I've thought, since we discussed this in September or October, whenever it was that I saw you, I've been thinking about how unusual this particular case would be, right? Because he slips down the chimney. He's, hypothetically vertical in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then according to her story, he's not found for 4 or 5 days. So that's quite a lot of time in the chimney. So it'd be a really kind of weird case because, like, first of all, Ivy and I know that the liquids all settle right, due to gravity. So, and probably many of your listeners know this too, because there's probably a lot of crossover between horror and true crime, right?
Yeah.
So keep in mind, we usually think of like livor mortis as more of like a flat body situation, whether they're on their side or their back or whatever. But livor mortis will still occur the same way because it's really just a settling in the blood towards the ground. So this guy's feet would be full of his blood, and his face and the rest of him would be extremely dehydrated with all of that liquid settling in there. Now, I think that the fact that it was wintertime it would probably more likely mummify him with the cold air movement as opposed to decompose him in the traditional sense, especially if they hadn't been running their fireplace, which maybe they would have found him sooner if they found him, they decided to start a fire. But he's also wearing a Santa suit, so that's going to retain some of the heat of his body. And then one thing that I didn't think about right away, but considering, that chimney would be full of coal dust, and coal dust is very dehydrating. And so, again, I think that any of his exposed body parts to the coal dust would also he'd be kind of mummified looking, or very desiccated, because, that coal dust would pull all that moisture out of the surface of his tissues and stuff. So I think that would be the case. And then, of course, they got to take him and they got to do an autopsy on him for
yeah,
sure.
100%.
Because they got to figure out like what.
Yeah,
Did he
what is going on? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Was he on drugs when he did it? You know, I mean, obviously, we like to think of this guy as the wholesome character in the show for sure. But, you know, the cops don't know that. So they got to do their due diligence. And he's got to go probably to the Cook County Medical Examiner's office.
Right.
And he's got to get an autopsy done on him to determine, yes, in fact, that his neck was broken. So this would take actually quite a bit of, I think, restorative art, and our embalming would be different because, you know, one of the things that we seek to do is balance moisture. So he would have a crazy moisture situation in his legs with all of his blood and other body fluids down there, but his face would be very dry. So and then he'd be autopsy. So who knows how that would change him. But also, fortunately, he would be autopsied because then, you know, as embalmers, it's a lot easier to access some of those more difficult areas when somebody has been autopsied and treat those things. So imagine that would be the case. I mean, she didn't say if they had an open casket funeral later
right.
on. But, yeah. You know, you do your best.
Because that was my biggest concern after you said, like, his face would be super dehydrated. Because, I didn't realize it was a couple of days that he was in there. I thought it was months. So I was like, oh no, like, he's gone. Like, that's a straight cremation.
Right.
Yeah, not doing anything.
You would have smelled it before that, right?
Yeah. But like 5 days or something like that, it's like, okay, well, that could potentially be doable. And then when you mentioned the dehydrated face, I'm like, well, is he even viewable, or would he even be viewable? Because like you said, you know, the cold air with the coal dust and just the warmth. Again, you mentioned the warmth of like his coat that he had on, and also he had an armful of presents too. So that would have retained more heat. So would his legs be super like edemic, and then just like a super dehydrated, mummified face? Like, what type of restorative art would we have to do in order to make that face look normal?
So, you know, we'd have access to his carotids. Obviously, both of them would need to be injected with embalming solution. And, you know, for those people in the audience who don't know about embalming, we have chemicals that we call humectants, right? They contain moisture retainers, just like your lotions that you put on your hands or whatever else. And those will also help to add some volume to his face, and we can control the rate of flow and the pressure as we inject him. So we'll get some of that back. But, you know, when the cells become very dehydrated, they do not rehydrate. And so, yeah, he would be a little bit on the leathery side just because, just like anything else. So I think we'd be able to get some solution in there. But I don't know. It's tough to say. 4 to 5 days, maybe it's not as bad. Mm-hmm. It would be real spotty, I think, too, you know, because nothing moves uniformly when it comes to that sort of thing. So, you know, some areas would be more dehydrated than others, you know, his nose and his cheeks and his chin probably. But, you know, maybe some of it would still be fine. I don't know. I just think about how they didn't find him sooner because gravity's still acting. Like, you're telling me his arm didn't move a little bit and this giant chimney and the presents fell down, you know, like that kind of stuff. But yeah, then his legs would be really in bad shape, I think, with all the moisture. And again, this is getting technical with the way decomposition works, but the presence of water greatly drives decomposition. So more water, the more decomposition. Plus, like, I was a little confused when she was describing it. They went to start a fire and that's when they smelled it. But I don't know if they actually got the fire started or if it was, they just like were like, what's that smell? And then the decomposing dad.
That's what I was thinking. Like, there's no way they started that fire and just like, oh God, no, you could have smelled that earlier.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. That it would have. I think there would have been other things that kind of key you into the fact that somebody was in your chimney decomposing. I think there would have been other signs, just kind of like, around the house, something smells, you got this weird movement. Maybe air's not moving normally because like when you have a chimney in your house, you're used to certain like venting, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think you could probably do it. That would be a terrible transfer to do, right?
Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And hoping this family like doesn't see his face or
right,
all that stuff. Like,
to be honest with you, I think that some of that stuff would be unavoidable because it's not, she talks about them pulling him out of there. So, I mean, how do they do that? Do they get a rope around him and then pull him up?
That's what I'm wondering. Was it up?
Break the damn chimney down.
Or did they have to unlayer it like brick by brick? Because like I'm even like thinking about how would that removal look like? Like how would because what probably happened is she'd call, like you're supposed to do. You're supposed to call the police first. Call the police. They report the death. Then you'll have a coroner that will be on scene. Then the coroner's going to be like, well, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
Then, depending on the coroner, if they're nice enough, they will have the police and or whoever they else. Sometimes coroners bring along like a deputy or something like that to help. Especially when it comes to like hanging and victims and stuff like that. But
I've spent a lot of time with the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. I used to run an embalming lab there, so I got kind of a little insight for you. Assuming that they lived in Cook County, I mean, they talk about living in Chicago, so that's Cook County, right?
Yeah.
And so what you would have is you would have the police, you would also have an investigator. They have an investigative department, like a coroner, deputy coroner would be. But then they also have by directive, either funeral homes on call or they have their own hired sort of independent ambulance team that goes and makes the actual transfer. So they would have the potentially the resources of the Chicago Fire Department at their service if they needed to make such a very difficult transfer at that time. So who knows? They could have had a lot of people out there and a lot of equipment. So as far as not drawing attention to what's going on in Germany, like
all the attention is going to be on that house.
Yeah, especially if it's cold and people are bored and
they're stuck inside.
The 70s, so to speak. So everybody's got nothing better to do than
rubberneck.
Exactly. Like the internet. Yeah. Well, I mean, thankfully, there's no cameras probably, or, they got those reel-to-reel video cameras or whatever.
Right.
There's no independent filming of what's going on there. So it was all, handled by the media. But, that had to have been on the news.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Christmas tragedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. Poor Kate. Like, I totally get why she doesn't want to celebrate Christmas or any holiday for that matter. Like, yeah, that's pretty bad.
Pretty traumatizing.
Yeah.
Well, and like she says in the clip, that's how I found out there was no Santa Claus.
Right. Oh my God.
Well, and kind of the best part about that clip is like the whole time she's telling the story, Billy's just like digging around for something. I can't remember. Like he's not even like really paying attention to what he's saying. Gizmo, on the other hand, very, very engaged.
Oh my God. Yeah, because he even makes that little noise at the end, like, oh, like, Gizmo knows what's going on.
Yeah. Highly intelligent animals. These gremlins are. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, and like I know that brings us to our last death, but there's so many things you could go over in this movie because you have like the teacher. I don't know what happens to him. We just see the lower half of him and the needle sticking out of out of his butt.
Yes. Yeah.
And then,
Who knows what they injected him with?
Right. And then I think the other death that I always thought was kind of concerning, I guess, was Mrs. Deagle flying out of the house on her like little motorized chair.
Yeah. That was probably one of my favorite parts.
Yeah, I mean, that was a tough part about that part of the movie, right? Because like she was like kind of a villain.
Yeah.
You know, so you're like, all right, well, the villain's got the villain, like, oh, enemy of my enemy is my friend, you know, so you're like, okay, she deserved it, even though she's just a poor old lady. But
Right.
She totally did anyway.
it was the 80s for you, right? So,
Right. She got her just desserts. It's good.
yeah, no empathy for people who are just only grouchy.
Yeah, and she made that. Oh, I don't know. Like as a kid, there was like she talks to this old man on the street and makes him go, "Oh!" And it just for whatever reason that always got to me. I was like, "What did you do to that old man?" Like it almost sounded like she stepped on his foot or something.
Yeah, this crabby old woman. Who knows? But yeah, that was the other one. Would just kind of go flying out of the house.
Yeah, like who wanted that kill?
Yeah,
like,
she's definitely gone.
Yeah. Well, this has been a lot of fun just analyzing it and just kind of going over biology and that sort of thing. So we do really appreciate you doing that for us. I do have a question for you, mortician. How long have you been in this field and how did you get into teaching?
Okay, so I have been in funeral service for 15 years, and I've been an instructor for 10.
Okay.
Almost 11, actually, in February it will be 11. And so before I came to funeral service, I really wanted to be a science teacher. I was going to school for it. I have an undergraduate degree in natural science and mathematics, and this is what I wanted to do. But the year was 2008, and so for people may not remember the Great Recession, so schools weren't hiring, and there was no necessarily an opportunity. So I kind of started looking around at other stuff that I wanted to do. I looked at law school. Chicago actually has a pretty good optometry school. I always thought I'd be a good optometrist, right? I mean, I got the right demeanor to 1 or 2, like that kind of thing. And then on top of that, you really don't have to deliver anyone bad news. But and I was in the Navy, and so I was just trying to figure out how to spend my GI Bill, essentially what it came down to. And people had always said, you should think about becoming a funeral director. You like science, you're good with people, that kind of stuff. I'm like, all right. And so I just kind of Googled mortuary schools in Illinois, and Worsham, which is our local mortuary school. Is that where you went, Ivy, or no?
I did not. So I actually, Ivy Tech is where I went.
Oh, okay, got it.
And then our intern, though, who we had on the show before, goes to Worsham.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yep. And so I was like, what do you think? Should I be a funeral director? And they were like, yeah, you should do it. And I was like, okay. And I noticed that there was a lot of niches to be filled in funeral service, and that the community was very small. And so there was a lot of opportunity there. And so I went to work at a really busy funeral home. We did, almost 600 calls a year.
Oh, wow.
And served all sorts of population. I remember one day I would embalm an immigrant person that's going to be shipped to Mexico, and then on the table that's next to them, it was a local judge, right? So it was just that was the spectrum of people that we got. So a lot of opportunity when it comes to restorative art and working with different cultures and different ceremonies and that kind of stuff. And while I was doing that, I got my master's degree, and the teaching position at Worsham opened up. So I taught embalming, funeral directing, restorative art, and oversaw the RA and embalming labs. And I taught history and did some other stuff at the school. But in a roundabout way, I became a science teacher, just of a very specific science. So that was kind of what it was. And I think I'm kind of unique in the mortuary science education sphere, that most people want to do the art stuff, the funeral directing, the law, that kind of stuff. But I'm always like, no, I will take the science class. That's what I want to do. That's what matters. That's what gets me excited. And, that's a tough thing for people to learn. And so anything I could do, like, I don't know, make up embalming cases out of famous movie deaths to make it more relatable, I'm going to do that stuff. You know, I mean, the other thing that you probably didn't see is I do one where I talk about embalming chemicals in our everyday life. And so, you know, we hear about, embalming chemicals are poisoning the earth. Well, not if you know your chemistry, and then also recognize that a lot of the stuff we use in embalming, we also use in food, and that sort of stuff. So, or it's a natural process like formaldehyde is an organic chemical as part of people's metabolism, but people don't know that stuff. And so it's my job to kind of clarify, not only for the funeral directors, but the general public.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things personally as a mortician, is that to educate the general public, because this is still such a taboo subject. Nobody really wants to talk about death. But it is so important because it is a part of everyday life. It's unavoidable.
It is the most natural thing in all of humanity.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is.
And like you said, and inevitable. Like you are never going to bypass it. It's going to happen to everybody. So it's so important that people are educated on this, and there's not like a taboo stigma around talking about it. Or the other thing is like it's encased in mysticism. It shouldn't have to be that way.
No.
All this should be, you know, open to the public. People should know what's going on because it is so important. Because, like I said, death will come for everybody. So you might as well know how to deal with it when it comes. You know what I mean? And what your options are, because a lot of people don't know what their options are.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that there's more information out there about funeral service in general than there ever has been before. So having people that can make it make sense, that are actually like clear on some of the things that they talk about. I mean, you know, there are people out there who get bad information. There are people who are just kind of like mid information that really talk about funeral service to get attention without actually educating anybody on the topics. So, you know, people that are still in the field like you, Ivy, where you're actually the part of sitting down and working with families, you hear stuff, oh, well, I saw about embalming here, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You know, for years, I can't say growing up because it really isn't growing up, but from my early 20s, you know, Carl Sagan was one of the people that I really admired. Yeah. And he's probably the greatest science communicator there ever was. And so if I thought, you know, if I could do that kind of stuff for funeral service, then I should be trying to do that. And so, you know, you think about Cosmos and he's riding his little bike around on, you know, like that kind of stuff. And so, you know, he's willing to put that kind of stuff out there for the general public. So I think that some of us need to be responsible. And when it comes to embalming, you know, when people deserve to know what happens, and they should be able to ask questions to get answers that aren't like, well, I just take a little bit of fluid and put it here and there and that, right? Like you should have some clear and concise answers that are in your own words.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole part of the embalming process is so intrusive. You are literally getting into someone, for lack of a better term, and the family's just like, oh yeah, go ahead and embalm. Embalming is just like a blanket term. They have no idea exactly what goes on to it. They have no idea what we're doing. And what we're actually doing is, like I said, it's basically like surgery, but it's like post-surgery, you know?
I like to call it, you know, like a parasurgical or quasi-surgical procedure. And it's, you know, sort of in the same, it's kind of the same category as like a tattoo or maybe plastic surgery, because it's something that you don't necessarily need, but you want because it will make things better for the time that you're going to use it, right? Yes. So we have to treat it the same. We have to treat it the same way as a doctor that was going to give somebody a nose job, or you know, a tattoo artist who's going to put something on your skin forever, that sort of stuff. So we need to be smart like that too, and not mysterious and be like, ooh, you know.
You know, another thing, you know, if we ever had you back on the show again, which would be really cool if we could, would be to analyze, because, you know, we're talking about misinformation and stuff like that.
Yep.
Embalmings that happen on screen in movies.
Yeah. Got to find some, right?
Oh, I have at least 5.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that would be the thing. Send me the ones that you have in mind, because like some of them aren't good. You know, like if you're watching 6 Feet Under, like every good mortician does, right? those embalmings are, I think, relatively accurate for TV, that kind of stuff, what they're doing there. It's realistic. People are sitting there chit-chatting about other stuff that's going on while the embalmings are happening. Like that's typical
how it goes.
culture.
Yep.
Yeah. So send me the stuff. I'm happy to go through it, and we'll talk about it.
I don't like the video game we played.
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard about that. There is a video game out there.
Assistant.
Yep, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah.
We played that together. I was just impressed at how easy it was and how quick it was to embalm a body in like less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, there's another game too that's like, it's more like Farmville, and it's a funeral home. Have you seen this one? I forget what it's called.
I have.
But yeah, like actually one of my first podcasts in the FuneralCast, I did that.
That's cool.
We messed with that game too, but it was like literally like playing a game of being at work, because you had to like monitor the crematory, and you had to like answer the phone. I'm like, why on earth would you want to play this game? The most stressful parts of your job.
Yeah, right.
You're on your phone and you have to like have in-app purchases to do it.
Wow. Oh my God. Man, yeah, I don't know if I'd want to play that then. I mean, I heard about it when it first came out. I think I was like in mortuary college at the time.
Yeah, it's not very old, yeah.
I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. And then like it costs something to play it or something like that. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Not that cool.
Yeah, no, not that
cool.
Not that cool.
Yeah.
Not that cool. Yeah, I watched like a playthrough on YouTube or whatever. I was like, okay, this isn't, I don't want to pay for this.
Yeah, I don't want to pay for something that I'm already doing right now.
Yeah, it's like when a chef comes home, they don't want to cook.
Yeah.
They don't want to cook for themselves.
Yeah, and it was like really the most mundane parts of our job.
Yeah.
It's
like, answering the phone. I got to fill out this paperwork, or, watching the crematory. Yeah. It's like, oh, gee, thanks. I just did that. Well, thank you so much, Ben. We really appreciate having you on.
You're welcome. It's fun. It's nice to talk to you again. We met briefly when I was on the road in Indiana, and so here we are again.
Yeah. And like I said, it'd be fun to like do something else. And if you ever, have any ideas, throw them our way, because we also do a lot of true crime stuff as well.
We do, yes.
We try to keep it more local to Midwest area, but we're not outside of going other places.
Yeah, Chicago. I've done cases up in Michigan. I'm working on another one, but we would love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. Keep me posted whenever you got an idea. I'm perfectly happy to come back. I mean, my other two podcasts are, I'm not going to say serious, but something that's a little bit of a different gear is perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, guys, they are a lot of fun to listen to. You are a really good host, and I like that you like to have fun too.
Yeah. People always think, and Ivy, people think, funeral directors are boring, or they don't like to have fun or whatever, but a lot of the people in and around funeral services are humans too. So they like to joke around, and they like to tell their story, and they have a lot of things to say. So if there are certain ones that I would direct people to if they were outside of funeral service that are interested in things like, I interviewed the guy from Alcor Cryonics, freezing people. I like people from your group might be interested in Kyle Sherwood. He's the one that owns Save My Ink Forever, the tattoo company. Yep. There's some stuff like that on there. And then if people are ever interested in, funeral director culture, funeral history, that stuff is in there too. So if people are ever considering, like there's an episode on how to be a mortician. There's a couple of them actually. So if you're not even sure how to get started,
listen to it.
We did a couple of episodes on how to look for a school, what can you expect, and how to prepare yourself, and that sort of thing too. So.
And that's great, because there are a lot of people that are interested, even like, and this too, like, when I was in school, there was like people about my age, like 19, fresh out of like high school. And then there was some people that were, this was their second job, or maybe this was like, they've had a long career and they just wanted to shift careers. Like there was a police officer in my class. he didn't want to do that anymore. And so he became a mortician, and he's actually a really darn good mortician, I'd say.
Yeah. The average age of one of the schools I teach at, the student age is 36. So I've had students that are in their 70s, so like you said, all the way from 18 to in their 70s. It's so funny when I see people are like, am I too old to do this? I'm like, what are you, like 28? Like,
right.
No, you're fine, right? Like, you're actually in the wheel. I mean, I didn't go to mortuary school until I was 30. So, second career, very common for us.
Mm-hmm. And, that's usually the way to do it, I think. I mean, it's hard, especially if you got children, families, married, that sort of thing. It is very hard to go through college, but, if you have the willpower, you have the right mindset and, the support to do it, go for it, because you never know where it's going to lead you or where it's going to take you,
Yeah. Well, I mean, kudos to, women like yourself in funeral service that manage to be moms and whatever else you do around the house. Like, that's tough. I mean, even if your husband is very supportive and, moms are special. That's all there is to it. So to be able to be a mom and be in funeral service and balance all that stuff it's not easy.
It definitely is, especially when you're pregnant and meeting with families. That was a whole experience.
Yeah, I'm sure it was.
But thank you again so much, Ben. And, with that being said,
look out for each other, and good night, cellar dwellers. Bye-bye.